Now tell me like three things that you think are just no brainers that people just honestly might not know in terms of nitty gritty money tips.
The number one thing I would actually say right now, because of the rise of like all of these like crazy things happening, like in the last 2 years, there's been this explosion, right, of like retail investing in stocks, like meme stocks, and like people blowing up on GameStop and all, and then crypto, right, and the way that that universe has built and grown, and then just like valuations and crazy things for all sorts of things, not just crypto and NFTs, but also like tennis shoes and baseball cards and like all these crazy things, right? So there's been like this explosion of different things happening. I would my best advice would be, and I think this is like wisdom that God has given me, is stick with what you know. Like do things that you know that make sense to you, that you can understand. Like do your due diligence. Do not just run into something because there's like this herdman, everybody on Reddit is saying like go buy this stock. Like if you don't know what the company even does for a living, don't do that. Like that's not God gave us, intellect and wisdom in order to learn these things. And by the way, if that means that you're not going to buy because like you're not a financial person or like you're not a business person, and that means you don't buy stocks at all, like that's okay too. Like maybe you're called to invest in real estate or like build your wealth in your home or other things, right? Or whatever it is. Again, like this is not about accumulations of wealth, but it is saying that, stick with what you know, I think is number one. The other thing, TJ, because you mentioned this and while we were talking ahead of this call, like debt, when you're thinking about debt, um, I would just like advise people to be very cautious. I do not think it's wrong to have debt, but I would advise people to be very, very cautious on debt. I think as Americans, the American culture is way too loose on debt, and it's because we are not content. We lack contentment. So we use debt as a way to not, and this is not everyone, so I don't want to, this is not blanket term, but I would say culturally, we have a culture of being too comfortable, having too much debt, and that honestly is like puts people in bondage, and like it really like keeps you from you being your full self. So um be very cautious and wise when you're thinking about, using debt. I'm not saying don't ever take out a mortgage to buy a home, or don't ever, I think there are some very wise uses of debt. So this is not a condemnation of debt in general. It's just a call to us as believers to say, don't make yourself subservient to debt. Proverbs, there's a lot of proverbs on, you know, the borrower is a slave to the lender. All these, there's a lot of wisdom in scripture about this, and I think that's a practical tip as well.
Number three.
You want
By the
three?
way, these two, the first number 1 and 2, if people don't capture anything from this except that, they're on like the right track. And I can say that from personal experiences. So like number 1 and 2 on these second set of 3 tips, super powerful. Stick with what you know. Be cautious on debt. Again, personal experiences. Like it is totally something that can just slip in unexpectedly, if you're not aware of certain things. So I would agree 100%. Now, number 3, practical seems like it might be obvious to you, but maybe not obvious to everybody else.
I think something else that is very topical these days is subscription services, which are great things, and from a business perspective, it's a great thing. For people who don't want to make like a large upfront payment for something, but want to kind of have continuing access to some, whether it's Netflix or your cell phone bill, whatever it is, like, subscriptions are valuable and important. But when it comes to managing your finances and your money, like I think that you want to be, it's easy for me, at least. I will just speak from personal perspective. Like, it is very easy for me to lose track of what I am subscribed to, and then end up paying for a bunch of things that I don't use or need. So I think that a practical tip in being wise stewards of our resources is sort of just being attentive to that.